Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku had a dangerous alliance part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story Sam McNamara 6 from Wattpad. So let's start the video. Ever since Class 1A defeated Class 1B in the joint training exercises, tensions have been steadily rising. Even while on work studies together, differences remained strong as calls for a rematch begin. After the completion of their work studies, the two classes return to UA and are about to be given a surprise challenge. Mr. Aizawa rubbed his eyes and spoke in front of the classroom. "Alright everyone, now that we are all back, it's time to start taking things up a higher notch. Your work studies have no doubt shown you that there are many different responsibilities and duties as a hero, but you are all still students. Some of you have discovered new limits or capabilities of your skills and quirks while everyone else has not." Midoryia glanced over at Shinso, wondering what he had been doing during the work studies. Was he up to speed with everyone else at that point? "The other teachers and I have decided to launch a new type of event for UA High. Both classes will be returning to the training campsite in 3 weeks from now." Excitement rippled throughout the classroom. Hopefully things would be better than the last time they were there. "We won't be spending a week there, instead it will be one night. It will be an assessment on whether or not the work studies were sufficient for all of you." An assessment? I wonder what he could mean. Maybe it's like our first exams where we had to either capture or flee from a teacher. In that case we'll likely be paired up like last time, since usually most heroes don't work alone. "I wonder who I will working why. Midoryia, you're muttering again," Uraraka whispered. Meanwhile in Class 1B Mr. Ken continued to speak. "There will be multiple teachers there and possibly some of the pro heroes you worked with." "Why are they going to be there?" Pony asked. "Who cares? Maybe it'll give us a chance to show Class 1A who's better," Momona commented. "You're actually not too far off, but for now I strongly advise that all of you brush up on working in larger teams. It will be like the previous matches but with an added twist." "Alright. I can't wait to bring my A game back here. It will be fun to finally win something against 1A. Tetsu cheered. Kendo sighed as the class became more excited. "Just because we get to battle 1A doesn't mean that we need to act all superior to them. It's wrong to be arrogant," she said. "Come in Kendo, don't you at least feel like we deserve a better chance at victory or winning something instead of them?" Setsuna commented. "This isn't about being better than them. It's about being better than before." "Alright everyone, that is enough for now," Mr. Ken said. It was almost time for dinner. She was feeling like having noodles and a few other things, but there wasn't any left for her to cook. She'd have to go grocery shopping beforehand. Plus, "Hey Midoryia, can you run out and get us a few items from the grocery store?" "I forget to add a few items to the list," Momo asked. "I'd do it myself, but I got to keep an eye on my cooking." "Sure, what do you need?" "I got them written down here," she said as she handed him a piece of paper. "I'll pay you back." He took the list, looked it over, and then grabbed his coat from his dorm room. There were a few other of his classmates in the common area lounging about. It didn't bother him to run an errand though. He took one step outside. His breath was more visible than Shoto's ice quirk. The snowflakes fluttered and danced as they gracefully fell all around him onto the ground. As the snow on the ground crunched beneath his footsteps, he instantly wished that he had brought a friend with him to keep him company. The store was abuzz with patrons. He took a closer look at the list. Bok choy lentils, spring onions, yellow curry sauce, udon noodles. With a basket in hand, Midoryia collected the items on Momo's list. A few minutes later, all that he needed to get was the udon noodles. The aisle for the pasta foods was somewhat barren except for a girl with orange hair. Her clothes looked somewhat familiar, as did her hairstyle. There was one last package of the noodles left. She was heading in the same direction. Without thinking, he ran so that the package would be his. She did the same. Their hands both reached out to grab it. She spoke. "Midoryia, is that you?" It was Itsuka Kendo from Class 1B. "Oh sorry Kendo, I didn't realize that was you until now," he stuttered. "It's alright, do you need this?" she asked him. "Well see, Momo asked me to get a few things and this was one of them." So technically I don't need it, but say no more, you can have it, Kendo replied with a smile. Wait, are you sure? I mean, I don't want to guilt you into letting me have it. It's just, I'm sure, I was just going to buy them for myself, but it sounds like you'll need them more. Well, thank you, Kendo. No problem. How are you doing today? Midoriya's legs began to shake slightly as his thoughts turned to the falling snow. I'm alright, just a little cold from walking over from the dorms. Don't worry, you'll warm up soon enough. Actually, this is the last item on Momo's list. In that case, do you want to walk back with me afterwards? He froze, and not from the cold. She probably meant nothing romantic by it, but that still made him feel warm and bubbly inside. Yeah, that would be nice. Are you almost done shopping? Yep. Let's go, she replied happily. She carried her purse and a bag of groceries while Midoriya carried a bag of his items. The snowfall was steady and the light of the sun was giving way to street lamps. So, did you hear about the trip to the training camp? She asked. Yeah, it's kind of odd that we're being assessed again this early after our work studies. Oh yeah, I heard you went with Todoroki and Bakugo to Endeavor's place. How did that go? It was good. I learned how to better utilize and control Black WHP. It was a very active place to be. How did yours go? Well, when you're working for the #1 hero, it's bound to be demanding. Probably more than mine was, but still hectic. Did you work alongside anyone? Yes, Yanagi was with me. They continued to walk in the evening snowfall as the campus got closer. I kind of like this snowfall. It's quiet but also appealing, Kendo said. What do you mean? Well, each snowflake is different than any that has come before or after it. They're like quirks. Some are similar but others have completely different capabilities. But in the end, they're all the same thing, a quirk. Where else can you find something so varied and yet identical at the same time? He was surprised. Midoriya had never heard of an analogy before. It left him feeling tingly inside. That was pretty cool. Just like this snow, she said with a chuckle. Yeah, let's get back before it gets too late. It was nice being with you, Midoriya. Same, you have a good night, Kendo. The two of them went their ways as he entered the dorm building. Momo was waiting there with an anxious look on her face. Did you get everything there? I definitely did. He gasped for air. The League of Villains and a liberated all for one. And someone lying on the ground. Maybe dead. His stomach ached and everything was spinning. A terrible nightmare that was. No one was around him and the frosty window was still intact this time. He stumbled to his feet while grabbing a glass of water. Things quickly calmed down. His breathing began to return to a steadier pace. A glance at his clock showed that it was 5:45 in the morning. The nightmare still haunted him and wasn't going away. He needed to clear his mind. After a quick change of clothes, Midoriya headed outside for a run. It was very cold and snow hugged the ground. The air around him became cloudy from his deep and fast breathing. If he just ran a couple of laps around the campus, maybe things would be better. Midoriya, are you okay? He looked to his side and saw Kendo running up from behind him. Kendo, what are you doing up so early? I always go for a morning jog. But then I saw you and thought something was wrong. He stuttered slightly before replying. I had a rough night and decided to stop sleeping. I'm sorry to hear that. What happened? She asked as they continued to jog. The last thing he wanted to think about was the nightmare that he was trying to clear his head of. But he also wanted to be transparent. I'd rather not talk about it. Well, I can see that it's weighing you down. Come on, you can jog with me if you'd like and talk about it. He agreed and the two traveled through the cold snow as the sun rose. As they did, Kendo seemed to moving ever so slightly closer to him. He could feel her body heat more than the sunlight. Or maybe it was from running. She smiled a lot as they chatted and he could feel one growing his face too. After several laps, the two returned to the dorms. He wanted to keep running with her, but his body had the last word. We should do this more often, you're a fun guy to be with, Kendo blurted out. Her face instantly turned red as she became embarrassed. She covered her mouth as he blushed in surprise. Yes, so are you? Tomorrow morning? Same time? Sounds great. See you then. They went their ways and left the cold outdoor. Midoriya decided he needed a shower and think about what she just said. At least she cleared his mind. Well, with something else. As the water flowed over his body, his heart was beating fast and not just from jogging. He met up with a girl who had a generous and sweet personality and gorgeous hair coupled with 𝐻𝐸𝐽. What was he thinking? Kendo was a Class 1B student and he wasn't. They hadn't really spent a lot of time together, although they had seen each other indirectly at the sports festival, the training camp and the joint training exercise. She was strong and had a good quirk, plus she was very focused on her studies. Kendo didn't harbor the same rivalry energy as did others like Minoma. She was a voice of reason and rationale, which made sense considering she was the big sister of Class 1B. This girl had a lot to like and a lot going for her. And she enjoyed being with him. But did she mean it in a friend's way or something more? Considering that she turned red and covered her mouth, maybe she said too much. He turned off the water and dried off. Midoriya couldn't help but think that he had been developing feelings for her. What was he going to do? 1 week later, tensions between Class 1A and 1B seemed to be rising in spite of the cold weather. Momona was mocking everyone in the other class more and more. It was like his ego was becoming a higher and higher priority. Tetsu was also becoming brash about Class 1A, even towards his work-studies partner Kirishima. Fortunately for Kendo, not everyone in Class 1B was distasteful of 1A. Although there was hope that 1B would be better this time around, there was still some caution towards becoming overconfident. Most of that came from her. As she walked back from her classes, Komori came up alongside her. She was hugging her coat tightly as a light snow fell, but was smiling a little too gleefully. I sure hope the camp will be warmer than here. It's hard for me to grow any of my mushrooms in this weather. Unfortunately, it may be chilly to say the least. No harm in hoping though. Kendo, I got to ask you something. Sure, what's up? Kendo replied in a surprised voice. So you do know that Tetsu has feelings for you? Kendo stopped. She had her suspicions before. Sort of. Why are you asking? You should go out with him. You two would make a great couple, Komori commented. Kendo turned bright red and sputtered. I really don't think that would work out. Is it because of Midoriya? Kendo became even more red. Komori couldn't possibly know this early. What are you talking about? Who's Midoriya? She stammered desperately. Come on, I've heard and seen you running with him the past few mornings. You seem pretty close with him. Despite the cold weather, Kendo was sweating and blushing profusely. It's not what it sounds like. It sounds romantic if you ask me, Komori said with a grin. It's just a coincidence of timing, that's all. Oh, so you do know him after all, huh? It's nothing, I swear. Well, if that is the case, just give Tetsu a chance. I know he can be a bit strong-headed and brash at times, but honestly, he's a good guy. We'll just see, Kendo replied. She was still shaking and blushing. But we all know you're crushing on Midoriya. Komori, please. Komori was still grinning but backed away. By that point they were near the dorm entrance. Kendo darted away and straight to her bedroom. What have I gotten myself into, she thought while collapsing onto her bed. Midoriya was a very selfless and engaging guy. He cared more about others than himself and earned the respect of most. And his smile was so inspiring as well as his actions. Although not winning the sports festival, of course neither did she, he showed strength and a powerful quirk. She sighed and gave up. Kendo had a crush on Midoriya. It was early as Midoriya got ready for his daily morning run. Good thing it was Saturday, or else he wouldn't been able to run as much. Even before starting, sweat was dripping down his body and the legs were trembling slightly. There was a lot of stake this morning on this run, and Midoriya was hoping for success. He saw Kendo waiting nearby, which was a bit different for her. Normally they would just do catch-up instead of waiting for the other. Then again, there was no rush on the weekends. Good morning, Kendo. Morning, did you sleep well? Yeah, I did, he lied. They started as usual with jogging and a casual conversation. For him, the pressure was building as they continued their way around the campus. It was like being a corn kernel in a microwave. They had just gone past the main UA building when he gave. Kendo, there's something that I wanted to talk to you about. She paused and looked at him startled. Sure, what's up? I've really enjoyed these morning runs with you and well, yeah, she commented. There was a small smile on her face developing. I was hoping we could do more, like go out together, he stuttered. Her small smile didn't change. She closed her eyes slowly and blushed slightly. Several moments passed, or to Midoryia, an eternity of uncertainty. I enjoy these times with you too, and I don't want it to stop either. I'd like a date, she replied eagerly. Wait, really? Of course, it wouldn't be very nice to lie. What did you have in mind? I was thinking of going to the mall tomorrow, he replied. Sounds great, I'll meet you outside your dorm. Midoryia hadn't felt that good since he got accepted into UA. Snowflakes kissed the soft skin of their faces. Midoryia didn't have a hat available, but Kendo did. Although it was colder than Shoto's frosty arm, in combat the temperature didn't seem to bring down the mood. There were a lot of people bustling about all around. The air held its own hum of life and activity. So what were you thinking of? Kendo asked curiously. Well, actually, 𝐈𝐴 is thinking of an experiment. An experiment? On the first date? Bring it on. Taking her hand, Midoryia led her to what he hoped would be a memorable experience. Hey, we got everything ready. N is approaching the food court now. What about S? The second one looked down through the tiny skylight. He quickly spotted their short woman standing in line at a fast food restaurant. Yep, looks like she's going to order fried chicken. Now all they needed to do was wait until the agreed time came. For people. 5-minute window. 6 quirks. And plenty of money to take. So far it seemed to be okay. Midoryia had just finished going to a second clothing store for Kendo as part of the experiment. The idea was to come up with a new dress for Kendo to wear at the next UA festival. They were settling down to some food from one of the restaurants. She had some courage with a salad while he had some miso soup and gyuniku teriyaki. Since he was taking her out, he figured he'd pay for it. It was a nice meal, but Midoryia wanted to take her one last place before returning to the campus. If he remembered correctly, there was an ice cream spot at the mall. Hopefully she would enjoy that. Is it just me, or does something seem off about this food? It tastes extra dry, she commented. Yeah, my beef isn't as juicy. I could have 𝐕𝗎𝗪𝐶𝐻. Before anyone could react, the sound of something freezing instantly was superseded by seeing dozens of people being entrapped in a hard, transparent material. The substance jumped out of his and her dishes right onto them. At first it looked like a minor grease stain. Except it was growing and transforming into the transparent material. Midoryia could feel it wrapping itself all over his torso and legs. Kendo was worse off. Part of her arms and head were being imprisoned and couldn't move any except her mouth. Other people were in similar states, some even fully encased. Kendo. Midoryia. What's happening? All right, everyone, listen up. You get in our way and these folks die. Now hand us the money. Midoryia turned his head and saw 2 villains leaping down from the ceiling skylights towards where they were. They joined a woman and another guy at the center of the crowd of crystallized people. Where are the heroes? He thought to himself. Midoryia, I think we're on our own, Kendo whispered, but I can't break out of this. He tried to move his limbs, but it was impossible. The substance felt stronger than steel. Don't bother trying to break free. I can control the carbon atoms in oils and turn it into solid diamonds. The first villain said. As they continued taking money from the trapped people and cash registers, one villain came up to them and without hesitation took Kendo's purse. That's not yours to take, he said. Shut up, boy, the villain replied after punching him in the face. Midoryia could see the anger in his date's eyes but knew that her quirk wasn't strong enough to even fracture the thick diamond layer around her arms and hands. Her struggling hurt him, that was her money. And nobody was about to ruin this date. One for all. 10%. He thought to himself. His quirk came online and instantly saw a few cracks form in the layer around him. But it wasn't enough. What the purse thief said as he whirled around. 15%. Smash. Crush. He sent shattered diamonds flying off in all directions. As power surged through his body, Deku prepared to use Delaware's smash on the villain with Kendo's purse. And stop that kid. The first villain immediately turned around to look. It didn't take long for Deku to strike him with the air burst. The impact sent N flying backwards into a gathering crowd of onlookers. He quickly turned his attention to Kendo. Her mouth was still covered, but it was clear she was trying to say something while trying to break free. Detroit smash. He threw several punches at the casing surrounding her. It shattered on the last hit, freeing her. Come on. Let's stop them. Deku said. Right? Forget the kids. The pros are almost here. One of the villains shouted. Time to go then. En said as the four quickly kept towards the skylights. So much for a payday. Hey, give back my purse. Kendo shouted as she took off after them. Deku followed her quickly. The villains were nearing the roof, but she couldn't jump like them. He could see her struggling to keep up. A pillar of fire erupted downwards onto the villains. It was a brilliant light and very hot. At the center of it all was a massive figure with flaming facial hair. Endeavor had arrived. Oh, see, number one is here. And do your thing. The couple and everyone else watched as the villains tried to escape the number one hero. En tried to encase Endeavor with a thick layer of diamonds, but it was no use against the heat of hellfire. He was too fast for any of them to escape and too powerful to defend from. One by one those villains found themselves falling back into the mall. Other pro heroes arrived and it was all over. The food was gone. The new clothes were ruined. And her purse had been reduced to ashes. Kendo was more than a little upset. Midoriya was exhausted and distraught. Deku. He turned around and saw Endeavor approaching him. I didn't expect you to be caught up in this. What are you doing here? I was taking her out on a date, but then those villains attacked while we were eating. I see. Are you alright? A little burnt out, but I think I'm okay. Were you using your quirk? Yes, but it was the only way to break free. Interesting quirk they had. You better show the police your provisional licenses so that you don't get in trouble. Mine was in my purse. Kendo sighed. I didn't see you use your quirk, so I can't say you broke the law, Endeavor replied. Thank you for your help today, they both said. He walked away to help the other pro heroes and police handle the aftermath. Midoriya did as he was told and was let off the hook by the authorities. By that point it was getting late. Hey Kendo, yeah? Do you want to go back now? Might as well. He sighed and they began their trek back to UA. All that he had hoped for felt ruined. The two of them were having a good time until those villains showed up. Now they were returning home battered and tired. Some date that turned out to be. Kendo, I'm so sorry that this happened. Midoriya, you can stop apologizing. There was no way to know that those dirtbags were going to attack there. Yeah, I wasn't exactly expecting us to have to use our quirks on a date. How are your arms feeling anyway? They look really beaten, she asked in a concerned voice. I might see Recovery Girl if they don't heal. What about you? You were trapped in those grease diamonds. I think a shower is all I need. Maybe several, she giggled. She took his hand and stopped him. A smile was on her face. Don't feel bad about it. I had a great date with you and I hope we can do it again sometime. Just hopefully without villains attacking. Midoriya instantly felt like he died and Uraka floated him to heaven. Really? Of course. You're really good with your quirk, Kendo. You have had a lot of experience. Thanks, so are you. I just wish mine was strong enough for me to break free and help the other people. As Midoriya and Kendo continued to walk back to the campus, Little could have told them that they were being watched and not by one person. What is she doing with him? They look like they were in a fight. That worries me. Maybe we should see if they're okay? No, they seem to fine. Let's just see what happens. It was getting dark and colder when they reached their dorms. Izuku, she said while holding his hand. Yes. I think we need to hide our relationship from the others. Because of the tensions? Yeah, I also don't want you to be hurt because of me. I don't want you to be hurt either. It's just when we were fighting back there, we can't let each other get in the way of us saving people. Even if there are other heroes on the scene. He was startled by this but also understood. She continued. Promise that you won't put me before others again? I promise, Itsuka. Maybe we can get you a new purse soon and replace the stuff in it. Don't worry about that. I have several purses in my closet and I can get my phone replaced easily along with the money. But thank you. He was a bit surprised to hear that but also a bit relieved. Thanks again for freeing me back there. Yeah, of course. We're training to become heroes. The couple smiled and hugged tightly before saying goodbye. It warmed him up in the cold air. Kendo, why do you smell like fried chicken? Setsun asked as she entered the common area. He had some to eat. Must have been really delicious because I can smell it from over here. It's certainly one for the memories, she sighed as she headed to her room. What is it that you wanted to talk about? All Might asked. The two of them sat in his office with tea in hand. A few days ago, I was at the mall and some villains attacked me and some other people. Midoriya started. You were there? Wait, so you heard about it? Yes, I saw it on the news. Interesting tactics involved. It took more than usual of OFA to break free and rescue the others. I don't know why, but I'm just lucky that I didn't break my bones again. More than usual, huh? And I assumed that you were caught in the grease crystals too. Not as much as Ken dash. He immediately covered his mouth in shock. He couldn't let even know about his relationship with Kendo. Who knows what might he have said? Yeah, I partially was. My legs got covered, which made it harder to move. Perhaps the extra weight was unexpected for using the quirk normally. How were you able to get free initially? I used 15% on the diamonds to break it. Good to see your practice is paying off. I also have another issue. Before the attack, I've had a couple of nightmares that all seem to be linked. Were they successive? No, they just all had similar events and parts. And what exactly is common between them? I saw all for one, the League of Villains and the body of someone, like as if they were sacrificed. All for one. Sam replied after spewing out his drink. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was him. Did he say anything or do anything? He just looked at me and nothing else. I see. What about the League? Some of them turned into gnomes. It was really freaky to watch. No doubt. Did they try to attack you or something? No, they stayed behind all for one. And did you recognize the body? Midoriya froze. He didn't want to think about it. It couldn't happen to her. Such a loss would wreck his sanity. But then again, maybe AM could suggest a way to save Kendo. He started to shake nervously before slowly speaking. Can you keep a secret? Depends. 𝐒𝐻𝐵 girlfriend now. Am's eyes lit up slightly and smile grew on his face for a moment. Who is the lucky woman? You. If you don't feel comfortable with telling, you don't have to. Well, it's someone from the other class. Really? Even with all the tension going on. Yeah, it kind of feels like a Romeo and Juliet scenario. Am chuckled and spoke. Well, it better not end up the same way. No, I don't want that either. Regardless, I doubt that your girlfriend will be in danger as your dreams showed. That being said, don't let her get in the way of your training. Of course not. She has her own things to work on. She has school work, hero training, friends to be dash. I know, that doesn't mean don't set some time for you too. Yeah, I know. Kendo dashed. He covered his mouth in shock. His head fell as he realized that he said too much. Hold on, Itsuka Kendo. I didn't mean to say it like that. You're dating Itsuka Kendo, the big sister of Class 1B. How more cute is that? Midnight said from behind. Midoriya turned very red in embarrassment. Sweat was dripping down face and arms. Can I help you, Midnight? Am asked surprised. I just couldn't help but listen when I heard he said he had a girlfriend. Honestly, I thought it would be with you, Raraka dash. This is a private matter. AM replied sternly. Sorry, I won't talk about any of this with anyone else. I'll be on my way. She quickly darted out of the doorway and the two continued talking. So, Battle Fist. Are you worried that you'll put Kendo in danger? Maybe. I don't want her to get hurt just because of me. I can understand what you mean, but remember, heroes are there for those who can't protect themselves. They will inevitably get hurt. Now, if you mean as her being taken hostage, you have to decide with her what to give up for the best outcome. So you're saying that I should talk to her about it? Well, we kinda already did after the mall. We ended up promising to not let each other get in the way of hero work. All Might smiled in relief. You found a good girlfriend. I wish you two the best. Thank you. There's been an issue recently with the upcoming assessment, Mr. Aizawa said as he addressed his homeroom students. Is it cancelled, sir? Ida asked. No, but it won't be at the training camp or this weekend. Instead, it will take place here next month. We have a few prospective students that will be joining us. In the meantime, you will meet them later on today after school. Ida, if you would please direct your classmates on conducting themselves with our guests. Time skipped to the end of the day. He decided to go find her and check in. It had been several days since the fight at the mall and they hadn't spoken directly since. It was hard to meet up without anyone knowing or seeing the two together. Midoriya pulled out his phone and shot Kendo a text. "Hi Itsuka, do you want to meet up later this evening? Maybe go out and grab dinner or something?" He waited a few long anxious minutes before getting a reply. "Sorry Izuku, but I'm meeting a new student. How about this weekend?" He sighed and replied, "Yeah, that's okay. Hope you had a good day." Time skipped to later in the evening. "Everyone, if I may have your attention," Mr. Aizawa said, "this is Akane and Kendo. They are some of the prospective students who will be joining us for a few weeks, including during the assessment." Two teenagers, a girl and a boy, walked in. The boy, Kendo, had hair similar to Kirishima but was a dark indigo color. He had a build similar to Mirio but with a face similar to Fat Gum. The girl, Akane, had brown hair covering one of her eyes. She looked shy and about Tsuyu's height. "Hi, nice to meet you all," Kendo said. Midoriya figured you all was some sort of slang. Hello everyone," Akane said. "Hi, I'm Izuku Midoriya. Great to have you here." The rest of Class 1A started to introduce themselves to their guests and help them move in, except for Bakugo. Meanwhile, in the Class 1B dorms, the students were introduced to the third and final prospective student, Mikasa. She looked a lot like Hatsum but with sea green hair but just as energetic. "Hi, I'm Itsuka Kendo." "Oh hi, I heard about you. You're the class representative and sorta leader, right?" "Pretty much. Are you excited to be here?" "Beyond excited. I am pumped to be a real hero with my quirk." "That's good. What is your quirk?" "Just until you see it. You'll be shocked." "That's reassuring to hear, I guess." Saturday. Finally, the weekend was here after a grueling school week. Midoriya walked into the common area to grab a little breakfast. As he poured out a bowl of cereal, his phone buzzed. "Good morning Izuku." "Hi there Itsuka. Sleep well?" "Sorta. I forgot what time to meet you for our date." "I was thinking noon. Perfect. I can't wait to see you." "Same here. See you soon my love." Did he just send that? He called Itsuka his love without saying, "I love you" before. Was that a bit much for her to handle? His was turning bright red in embarrassment. He didn't know how he came to this date idea, but somehow he did. Midoriya had spent several days preparing for this, and he was not about to let it fall apart. Villains had messed with the last date, but this time they wouldn't get in the way. "Midoriya, are you doing anything today?" He turned around to see Todoroki at the fridge. "I kind of am. Why do you ask?" "I am taking Kendo to meet my dad at the agency today, and I thought you'd want to tag along. Kendo is going to work for Endeavor. It's a work-study for him that lasts until the joint class assessment." Sorry, I can't do that." "You're turning blushing. Why is that?" I gotta go." 𝐒𝐿𝐽 was waiting in the common area. Kendo was there too. She had just texted her boyfriend when the third year arrived for Mikasa. "So what are you two doing today anyway?" Kendo asked. "When I heard about her quirk, I knew that I just had to introduce her to Ryuko. She would be an excellent mentor. You know, I haven't actually seen it yet. She wants to surprise us with it, but I don't think I can wait much longer." "Then I'll show you now." The two turned to see student coming out of the stairwell. "It really kicks butt. I call it Electric Dragon." "Let's do this outside, okay?" Kendo asked cautiously. "Well duh." As they walked outside the dorm, anxiety was rippling across Kendo's mind. The dreams that he had been having lately involving villains, were they from trauma that she was still reeling from too? Did he have another one last night? Was he going to be okay today? Would she be good for him? She kept seeing that mustard villain choking her classmates and her to no return with his gas for the past few nights. Going to sleep was becoming something that she started to dread. Would it happen again? Would everyone die again as before? Could she ever change the outcome? Kendo. Are you okay? You look like you saw a ghost?" 𝐒𝐿𝐽 commented. "Oh, I am sorry, I just zoned out. That's all." "Are you sure?" "I'm okay. Let's see this electric dragon of yours," she said to Mitsuka. "Stand back." Kerpom. A massive orb of pulsing energy instantly enveloped her, morphing quickly into something with lightning shooting off in all directions. A second later and they could see her again. Except she had wings and an exoskeleton that looked like it was made of electricity. Around her head was what resembled a yellow crystal skull of a hydra. Claws and a tail also covered parts of her with an electric appearance. Lightning continued to pulse from her as the wings flapped, causing her to hover slightly above the ground. They could still see her body and her grinning face beneath the skull. 𝐒𝐽𝐽 was beyond ecstatic while Kendo trembled slightly. And check this out. Mitsuka looked upwards, took in a deep breath, and a stream of lightning erupted out of her mouth straight into the sky. The sound was deafening. It was her equivalent of breathing fire. "I take it that you can fly too?" Kendo asked. "Hell yeah. Didn't you see the giant wings on my back?" she replied as she transformed back into her normal self. "Now I see why you're going to see Ryuko. Ha! With a quirk like that, we'll definitely crush 1A hands down," Momona shouted as he came out to investigate the noise. "Victory is already ours," Tetsu roared. Those tensions were still there. Midoryia surprised his girlfriend by taking her to an ice skating rink. Kendo told him all about Mikasa and the electric dragon quirk she possessed. He was stunned as they glided together. "That's incredibly powerful. No wonder she came to UA and Ryuko. I wonder where she was before. What about the students in your class? What are their quirks?" "I don't know, dear. Kato mentioned something about being similar to space stuff but with a catch. Akane, though I really don't know anything about her." "Well, I heard Akane has something significant about her, but I think her quirk is useless in combat. Let's forget about them and just focus on each other," Midoryia said with a grin. She smiled as they continued gliding while holding hands. "Is that Midoryia?" Mina noted from a distance. "And Kendo?" Toru replied. "I think they're in a ship now. We gotta ask them for details. Maybe back at the dorms. Let's just leave them for now. I never thought that a 1A and 1B would be together given the recent tensions." "I know, it's so cute." After tiring themselves out on the ice for another hour, Midoryia and Kendo headed back to the nearby station that they got off at on the way over. They were holding each other's hands tightly in the chilly weather. To him, it felt like they were sharing one body and all the warmth they had. He wanted to get closer to her, except they were already pretty tight amongst the crowd. For the moment, the two savored the love they felt from their joined hands. As they waited on the platform, Kendo spoke up. "Izuku, do you think the others will find out about us?" "I don't know, should they? Not with the rivalry between our classes. What if they tried to break us up? Then we have to keep a low, 'Hey, I think this is our train.'" They quickly got on board and found a seat. She lay her head on his shoulder and sighed as they continued to hold hands. "Itsuka, I won't let anyone break us up. You're my hero and I love you," he said slowly. She blushed brightly and looked him in the eye. Her head was slowly getting closer to his as his heart rate pumped up. "I love you too, hero." He could feel the slight glossy texture as her lips made contact with his. Their eyes closed as they saw stars in each other and turned red. She was so warm and tender to feel. There was an urge to push further, but not in public. He instead curled and locked his lips with Kendo's tightly for a moment before letting go. His heart was racing like crazy. Midoryia opened his eyes and saw her laying her head onto his lap. She was happy to be with him. He didn't want to leave her that night. It was a foggy feeling all around him. He felt drowsy and struggled to keep his eyes open. Stumbling more commonly than walking straight and correctly, the teen simply kept moving while trying to understand what was happening around him. Midoryia blinked several times. Then twice more. He was wearing his hero outfit. Shiragaki and the League were all around the scene. So was Bakugo, Uraraka, Mirio, Aizawa, too, All Might and Kirishima. Deku, a child's voice called out. He knew that voice. "Eri." He spun around and saw her standing at his feet and wearing the same clothes that she was rescued in. But when he looked at her face, he felt a cold terror sweep through him. She had no eyes, just two huge black circles. "What happened to you?" she asked. "What do you mean? Are you okay? Where's your quirk? Did it die?" He tried to speak, but no sound came out from his mouth. It felt locked up. He crouched down to her. Deku refused to leave her alone and vulnerable. "I think it changed," she continued. Eri looked at him through her black circles. Suddenly Deku could see a bright tiny red dot growing in each one like pupils. Her horn was growing larger and larger. To say he was scared would be an understatement. Deku had tears in his eyes from his fear for her. Was this really Eri? Are we going to die too? He was screaming no in his head as if he had a voice. But what did she mean by too? He turned around and saw everyone looking dazed and disoriented. Countless streams of a thick red mist was evaporating from them. It was all coming towards me, he realized. Deku looked at his hands and saw the mist entering his wrists. It was Eri. What's happening? He screamed in his head. But she wasn't there anymore. Instead lay a body. But it didn't look like Eri's. To his horror, as the people around him began to collapse to the foggy ground, it was Itsuka. He screamed. His whole body shot upright. Midoryia was sitting in his bed and drenched in sweat. He was breathing deeply and feeling a pain in his hands again. He looked and saw One for All had activated. Another nightmare. His all-might clock read 5:32 a.m. He couldn't go back to sleep after that. When she and Midoryia went for their morning jog, Kendo couldn't help but notice the extra amount of determination and fear in her boyfriend. What's wrong, Izuku? You seem off. Is there something wrong? And no, not 80s. She stopped and took him by his hand over to a tree. It's okay. I'm your girlfriend. You can trust me. Now what's up? He sighed and took in several deep breaths. I had a really bad nightmare last night. Oh, what happened? I dreamt that I was a vampire with a remote BLD draw quirk. And it killed a lot of my friends, including Eri. You mean the little girl that you rescued? Oh, Izuku, I'm so sorry to hear that. Who could want to do that to her? Not me, he said. There was a single tear coming down his face. She wiped it away and hugged him. It's all right, dear. It wasn't real. I've been having nightmares like it a lot lately. She was not expecting that. Hey, what are you two doing out here so early? They turned to see Midnight walking towards them. She was smiling at sight of the two lovebirds until his tears caught her attention. Are you hurt, Midoryia? And no, just talking about something deep. We were just out jogging and ran into each other and Kendo, I already knew about you too, at least that's what I heard in the teacher offices. Wait, W. She sputtered. She overheard me talking to All Might about us recently, Midoryia sighed. But don't worry, I don't talk about stuff like that with anyone. Wait, Izuku, why did you tell All Might about us? He gulped. How was he going to explain to her that All Might was his mentor and trainer without revealing One for All? I'll leave you two lovers alone. Just don't be late for class. Kendo was bright red with confusion and embarrassment. Midoryia sat down with her and began to talk. Momo, have you seen Midoryia? Usually he's up by now, but I can't find him. Ida asked. I thought I had heard something from his room this morning, but then I fell back asleep. DMN right. That 𝗕𝗓𝗪 woke me up too. Bakugo said loudly. That's why I was looking for him. Doesn't he understand that everyone is trying to rest up so that we are fully energized? Ida continued. He probably just had a bad dream, Kirishima commented. Which one is Midoryia again? Kato asked as he entered the kitchen area. The green hair nerd. You'll see him again, Kirishima responded. All right, everyone, let's stop chatting and stay on top of schedule for the day, Ida commanded. So All Might, the symbol of peace and former #1 hero, chose to train you. Because he saw you try to save Bakugo without using your quirk? Yeah. I don't believe that, I swear I'm telling you the truth. I know that, hun, I'm just messing with you. She looked a little less than serious when he finished explaining it to her. Fortunately, he managed to lie about One for All. They got up to return to their dorms, but as they did, Midoryia held her hand and talked softly. I don't know if there is much that can be done about the dreams. Even All Might seems to be unsure of what they mean or how to proceed. You've been talking to him about them? Yeah, they seem to affect my quirk. That's why I've been talking to him, to get some advice on managing my quirk in those cases. I wonder if that could be the same for everyone. She asked. Maybe, I don't really know since I don't know a lot about what happens in other people's dreams. That reminds me, don't you have a special notebook about all the heroes and the development of their quirks? Yes, I do. Actually, I have several, including one for the UA students. I want to see them sometime. Sure, why though? I heard that they helped Jiraiya with making that performance at the festival possible. Well, it wasn't exactly like that. 𝐒𝐻𝐽𝐽, actually we should probably hurry. I don't want us to be late. You're right. Thanks Itsuka, he said as he pulled her in for a brief peck. Let me know if those dreams keep coming back. You know when I'll be every morning. 3 weeks had passed since Midoryia revealed to Kendo about All Might training him. In some ways, she wasn't surprised that his quirk, given how similar it was to the symbol of peace, required some extra assistance. She couldn't help but feel a little jealous. They had gone out 2 more times and kissed on each one. So far, they had managed to keep their relationship hidden from their peers, but nevertheless they practiced constant alertness. That didn't get in the way of them growing closer though. But the nightmares kept haunting him every night, worrying Kendo and All Might significantly. As Midoryia sat in the cafeteria during lunch, he couldn't help but feel lonely despite being surrounded by his friends. On this day, Uraraka was with him along with 𝐒𝐭𝐻𝐿. Midoryia, you've been pretty quiet lately, is everything alright? Uraraka asked. Yeah, I'm fine. I've just been thinking about the upcoming assessment. I wonder what we'll be doing. I actually know. I overheard the teachers talking about it recently, 𝐒𝐭𝐻𝐿 said quietly. Really? They both said in unison. Yeah, I heard it's called jailbreak. I think teams can capture enemy players and take them to a cage. However, the prisoners can be rescued by any means of their teammates. They just can't break themselves out. That kind of makes sense, Uraraka said. Do you know if we'll really be fighting the other class? Midoryia asked. Yes. He became very quiet. Usually he would be muttering various thoughts, but this time, silence came to his head. No, he couldn't fight Kendo. He loved her too much to do that, and she probably would feel the same. Excuse me, but I need 𝐒𝐭𝐻𝐿, Uraraka and Midoryia to come with me, Mr. Aizawa. Suddenly said from behind. Why, yes, is something wrong? Midoryia asked. No, it just has to do with Eri and Mirio. Mirio? He thought. Eri seemed to have had a slight growth spurt, but she was still a little girl. She beamed when she saw his face. Deku, she said as she came over to hug him. Hi there, how have you been, Eri? It's great. I read a whole book by myself several days ago. That's amazing to hear. You'll have to tell me all about it. Deku replied. First things first though. Eri, this is 𝐒𝐭𝐻𝐿, the one who we think can help you with your quirk. Deku looked up from her and at all 3 of them. To say that he was caught off guard would be an understatement. How? My quirk is complicated to fully explain, 𝐒𝐭𝐻𝐿 replied to him. Basically, she can analyze any quirk that exists in someone else and determine every possible detail about it, including how it works and its triggers, Mr. Aizawa commented. So we could then train Eri on how to control her quirk? Deku realized. Correct. But there is more to it than just analysis. What do you mean? Hey everyone, sorry I'm late, Mirio said as he entered the room. Hey Mirio, nice to see you again, Deku replied. 𝐒𝐭𝐻𝐿, if you may, Mr. Aizawa continued. Am I just looking for details? She asked. For the moment. Eri, you can trust her to help you. Deku, what is she going to do? 𝐒𝐭𝐻𝐿 crouched down to Eri's height and placed her right hand on Eri's left shoulder. It's alright, Eri. I just need you to relax and let your mind go blank. And don't resist anything. Okay, should I close my eyes? That might help you. The little girl closed her eyes as if she were about to fall asleep. 𝐒𝐭𝐻𝐿 took a deep breath. A bright green glow began to be emitted where they touched. In an instant, Eri raised her head slightly and opened her mouth and eyes with brilliant streams of light shooting straight outwards. Her hair flowed as if there was wind as a loud rumble bellowed out. Then, everything returned to normal. The lights were gone and there was absolute silence. The young child opened her eyes again. Uraraka and Deku's mouths were hanging wide open. What was that? Mirio asked. That's my quirk when used. What did you find? Mr. Aizawa asked. She can't fully control her quirk because she doesn't have all the needed nerves to do so. Wait, but how? Deku wondered. I see. Is there anything that you can do to fix that? Mr. Aizawa asked. Fix it? You mean change her quirk? Mirio and Deku said at the same time. I'm not sure if you can 𝐻-, My quirk is called Forge. It enables me to manipulate or create new quirks inside others but not myself. 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲. Mr. Izawa grunted. You shouldn't be talking about that part. It's not classified, sir. Besides, I'm certain that they won't share this with anyone else. Will you? Mr. Izawa asked everyone sternly. Nope, not a peep, Midoryia replied. Create new quirks? How does that even work? Deku pondered silently. What if the League of Villains got their hands on her? Cold, you tell me what nerves are? Eri asked. Oh right, nerves are essentially what enable us to actually do what we want. In your case, your quirk requires too many nerves to control it. But Akane can change that. Midoryia asked. Correct. Wait, Midoryia, do you realize what this means? You could get a new quirk to replace your lost one. You can be Lemillion again. Deku said excitedly. Yes, she could, but, Mr. Izawa started, she has to be allowed to do that, but she doesn't have permission from the law to use that part of her quirk. She doesn't have a license to use quirk? Uraraka asked. No, my quirk is so capable that the government is afraid of potential villains gaining new quirks. So they have attached a device on me that prevents me from creating new quirks unless they allow it. I'm sorry, Midoryia, but I can't do it. You know what, I think I'll be fine quirkless. Deku was speechless. Back to Eri, could you modify her quirk so that she can more easily control it? Mr. Izawa asked. Only if she wants to, Akane replied. Can I, Uncle Izawa? Can I? She eagerly asked while jumping up and down. Of course, Eri, just trust Akane. Before Deku could fully process everything, Eri was changed forever. So how do you feel now, Eri? Midoryia asked. She just ran over and hugged him. There was a bright flash of light from her horn. The light enveloped him completely. Mr. Izawa quickly used his quirk to stop her. Eri calmed down. Sorry, Uncle, I suddenly thought I could help him. She replied. Help him? Deku asked. Guys, where did you all go? They started looking around the room for Midoryia. His face suddenly popped up from the floor. Whoops, sorry about that. I guess I wasn't expecting to fall right through. Akane, what did you do? Mr. Izawa asked. I did as you said. She now has full control of her quirk. Wait, Eri's quirk is meant to reset, Uraraka said. And I was originally born with a quirk, so Eri reset Midoryia to his original quirk. Deku shouted in excitement. It was the day before the assessments began. Uraraka and Midoryia hadn't told anyone what Akane told them from the teachers, or about what happened with Eri and Midoryia. He sat in his dorm room with a sheet of paper and a pencil. There was just enough time to spare between classes and training with all might to write something down. Ever since their first kiss, Midoryia had been wanting to give Kendo something special but couldn't think of something unique that would work. Now was really his last chance. Meanwhile, with Kendo, what should we do about the strong ones? Bakugo and Midoryia will both no doubt be stronger since the joint training. Setsuna asked the group. The entire Class 1B had gathered in their common area to discuss how to defeat 1A during the assessment. They weren't sure how it was going to play out, but there was certainty that the two classes would be fighting each other. It was a chance for redemption and to show that they were the better class. For Bakugo, we'll need to stay alert and be able to overwhelm him with brutal resistance and sharp hits even if it's a one-on-one. Remember how fast he was last time? Kamakiri commented. Yeah, but he can also store his sweat in those grenade-like features on his costume. That'll be hard to match. Setsuna replied. Then we'll have to take him down real fast before he can use those. What about Midoryia? Did you see those crazy black streaks coming out of his wrists when Momona him off? Hananuki asked. They smashed everything around him without trouble. He might have made them even stronger. And his quirk is a stockpile type which is useless for me to use. Momona mentioned. Kendo meanwhile was thinking about her new move and techniques she developed during her last work studies. Her battle fists could become larger or smaller in less time than it took to sling a punch without compromising the damage. In addition, she was also able to grab and throw multiple opponents a greater distance with less power. Hopefully that would give her an advantage for the assessment. Izuku. Her thoughts suddenly turned to him. She hadn't texted him if he had another nightmare. It seemed like that they were getting worse and more realistic based on what he said in the past few days. For anyone to have similar dreams consecutively for weeks, it really worried her. Without even thinking, she pulled out her phone. "Hi Izuku, hi Itsuka, what's up? I know it's late but how did you sleep last night?" There was a pause before he started to reply. Again, what does All Might think? "I'd rather not say. I'm working on a little something right now. Ooh, what are you thinking, boyfriend?" "Sure, it's a surprise, not even a hint." "Oh, I gotta take care of it. I love you Itsuka, I love you too Izuku." "Hey Kendo, who are you texting?" Pony asked. "It looks like you're feeling romantic." Kendo turned bright red in embarrassment and immediately hid her phone. "And no, it's nothing like that. I was just talking to my mom." Pony sighed and gave her a serious stare. "My Japanese may not be the best but I can still tell when someone is lying." "Pony please, don't worry, you can tell me later and I'll keep it a secret. I swear I was just texting my mom." Kendo got up and left the common area feeling flustered. By that point the discussion about how to win against 1A was over. Perfect. Now all he needed was a little cherry on top. Midoryia turned off the lights in his dorm and turned in confident that he chose everything wisely. She stood in the middle of the street. Battle Fist saw that no one else was nearby. What was she doing there in her hero costume? A loud drone pierced the silence as she walked slowly. It almost sounded like a large church bell that just kept vibrating after one impact. Her bones and skin vibrated to the ominous sound. "Is anyone here?" she asked cautiously while passing several empty cars. The stoplights were dead and there was no signs of life around her. She really was on her own. The drone continued on until it started to get louder and louder. Her body shaking and vibrating strongly. Why was she scared? She was supposed to be a hero and brave. It felt like she was near the end of her life all of the sudden. It didn't make sense. The sky was a bright metallic gray. No clouds hung, only continuous haze. "Where are you?" She turned around to the source of the voice. Instead, left foot became ensnared by a black tentacle. She tried to break free but it was like trying to escape thick tar. "Where are you?" Another tentacle of tar shot out of the ground and grabbed her right ankle. She couldn't escape it. Battle Fist quickly lost her balance and fell onto the road surface. Her hands didn't change when she tried to activate her quirk. She turned her head to see behind her but saw no one. "Where are you?" She recognized that voice. Before she had a chance to scream for help, a third tentacle of tar grabbed her right wrist from behind. It instantly her back upwards in a standing position. She looked and saw it was coming from a lamppost. She started to feel tension pulling on her limbs as the drone continued to get louder and louder. With her only free limb, Battle Fist tried to grab onto something to pull her free. But her grip was no good. "Where are you?" She knew that it was going to happen again as she saw another tar tentacle grab her last wrist. It was like she was caught in a spider's web but for people. Immobilized, she tried to open her mouth and scream where she was, thinking answering the question would free her. Instead, she felt a thick oily substance pour out, preventing her from speaking. "Itsuka." She looked up and saw a flash of lightning rocketing towards her. It greenish and bore resemblance to no, she thought. At impact with her chest there was one final word. From her. "Izuku." She screamed. She immediately looked around, drenched in sweat, and saw that she was in her bed. Tears were rolling down her face. She immediately grabbed her phone to make a text. "It's happened to me now." His phone buzzed. There was a text message. "It's happened to me now." Midoryia rubbed his eyes before responding. It was 1:47 in the morning. "Itsuka, what's wrong? I had a nightmare and now I'm crying." His eyes widened instantly. "What happened?" There was a long pause after that. Maybe she fell back asleep. Nah. No one could fall asleep that fast after crying. Maybe she got distracted by someone else. Another minute passed. Then another. Then another. Then a type icon appeared. "You killed me." He felt very cold and dead at the sight of those words. It was almost like his nightmares had been but from the victim's perspective. Itsuka's perspective. She was the one who he killed. Every night. Every single night was about her death. "I'm speechless," was all he could say. "I'm sorry to wake you up but I just couldn't hold it together." "It's all right, dear. I'm here for you." Let's talk more when we go for a jog in the morning. Alright, let's do this. Let's kick someone, but Tetsutetsu shouted as several of his classmates grabbed breakfast. They may have won last time, but only because they had their strength evenly split up. In reality, they are no match for Class 1B. Momona commented in a bit of a lunatic way. As the others continued to get ready, Pony noticed someone was missing. Sure, Kendo was always grabbing a morning jog, but not this late in the day. You looking for Kendo too? Komori asked her. Sort of, why are you? I swear I heard a scream that sounded like her voice during the night. I was going to check on her, but I got nervous about making an awkward scene. So it wasn't just me hearing things either? Setsuna commented. Did she say anything? Pony asked concerned. Sounded like Izuzi's or Izuki. Komori replied. Wait a minute, Izuku. Midoriya's first name. Pony said loudly. From Class 1A. I doubt it, Setsuna commented. Probably something else, but muffled. Girls, we need to talk to her. Soon. We should get back to the dorms before it's late, Midoriya said. Yeah, I just can't shake it still. I know what it's like. Just try and think about something else. That's why I started jogging in the first place. If it happens again, maybe we could talk to All Might. Izuku, yes. I don't know how much longer I can keep our secret from others. Pony sounds suspicious. Pony. Yeah, I may have accidentally revealed that I have a boyfriend. What did she say? I lied to her, but I don't think she bought it. So she doesn't know who you're seeing if you have a boyfriend? Right? I kind of want to tell her the truth though. I don't like lying. Midoriya was surprised by that, but after a moment, Pony sounded like someone who could keep a secret. We should get back now. Right? We'll figure something out, Itsuka. There you are, Kendo. Pony said as she and several other girls approached from behind. They were all on their way to class. Gee girls, what's going on? She replied nervously. You woke us up last night? What happened? I just had a bad dream, that's all. I think that you got something else to say. Plus you were gone longer than usual this morning. What else is there? Setsuna inquired. I really can't talk right now, but it was a really scary nightmare. Come on, we'll be late for class. As they sat in their desks waiting for the bell to ring, she took out a sheet of paper and thought for a moment. The pressure was too much even for Kendo to handle. It was time to spill the truth to Pony. Slowly, she wrote a single line. Midoriya x me, please don't tell anyone. Quickly folded it up, took a deep breath and dropped it on Pony's desk. The recipient noticed. As Kendo held her breath, the note was opened and read. Pony put a hand over her mouth as if to cover a silent gasp. She looked at Kendo with a surprised face before nodding with a slight grin. All right, everyone, I imagine that most of you have been looking forward to this day. However, I want to remind all of you that this is an assessment and not just another joint training exercise. Mr. Ken said as he entered the room. There will be pro heroes watching and evaluating your performance just like at the sports festival. Some of them are ones that you worked with during winter break. Like him, the rest of the guys were getting into their hero costumes. Midoriya was starting to get uneasy. He killed her. He kept having those dreams about the undiscovered quirks before finding Black 𝗕𝗏𝗏. What if it the same were to be? There was no time to talk to All Might about it. For the moment he needed to focus on the primary objective, show what he had learned while working for Endeavor's hero agency. Everyone, once we finish getting ready, head over to the forest training area. We'll meet up with the other class there, Mr. Aizawa said in the doorway. As Midoriya, he turned to his homeroom teacher and spoke. How is he doing now? Mirio is fine, we'll talk about him later. Alright, here we go. Midnight, All Might, the homeroom teachers, Present Mike and Mr. Nizu were all present along with the other students. Midoriya also noticed that Akane, Kato and a mysterious girl looking like Mei Hatsum from 1B were also there. Today this assessment will be carried out in a form called jailbreak. It is similar to the joint training exercise except that teammates can free each other from the cages. However, prisoners can't free themselves. Mr. Ken started. This will be done in 3 rounds. In each one there will be a team of 7 students from each class located at either side of the forest. 3 of you will have keys to the other team's cage, however no one from the other team will know who has a key. Mr. Aizawa continued. And each round is 30 minutes long. Whichever team has captured more players will be declared victors. You will have the trees and vegetation to somewhat hide you, but please avoid causing too much damage. It does take trees a while to grow back. Midnight concluded. The teams will be decided on now. Mr. Ken said in front of a series of massive screens. Round 1. Class 1A, 𝐴 Midoryia Class 1B, Bando Tokage Kodetsuburaba Sanatori Tetsu. Round 2. Class 1A, Todoroki Bakugojiro Kadashida Kaminari Class 1B, Komori Shizuki Shishida Minomiyanangan Mikasa. Round 3. Class 1A, Kirishimi Urara Midoryia Koda Hagakure Koyamisuro Class 1B, 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐵 Kamakiri Hananuki Quario Shoda Fukudashi Kendo. This is going to be interesting. Pony thought. Oh sure, put the new guy against the new girl, totally original. Kato commented. Hey, it's completely random, so don't complain about it. Mikasa responded. Hey, where is Shinso? Ida asked. He didn't do a work study over the break, so he can't be assessed. Mr. Aizawa answered. While that conversation was going on, Midoryia was already taking out his signature notebook. He sat down with the rest of his teammates while shaking slightly. So, any thoughts about how we defeat them? Kirishima asked. We'll probably need 2 people to guard the jail once we capture someone, Uraraka commented. And it can't be people who have keys to the other team's cage. It sounds like the key carriers will need to be on the offense, including 2 additional people without keys. So 5 people attack and 2 people defend, Midoryia concluded. Round 1 is about to begin. All participants take up your positions. Midnight shouted. Go Class 1A. Mina shouted. Begin. Midoryia and his team watched on the screens as the first round unfolded. Mineta immediately began laying down his ball all around the cage area while Jiraiya began listening for the enemy's position. The rest of the team split up and went in different directions. Meanwhile, Bando was coding everywhere he went with his signature glue. All of 1B went on the offense too. Tetsu went steel instantly and led the charge. Traps had been laid. A seemed to be waiting for 1B to strike and fall into their traps, while the latter was more content on overwhelming their opposition. But Tokage had already begun to split up into dozens of separated pieces and was likely aiming to confuse Jiraiya by tapping various tree surfaces all over the place. Just like in the joint training exercise. Tsuyu seemed to be using her camouflage to hide and ambush anyone since Midoryia saw her vanish in the middle of one screen. He observed what appeared to be a lack of coordination from 1A, which was odd considering Ida's leadership. Suddenly the trees were being knocked down and away by giant horns. Obviously they were from Pony. It didn't take long for everyone to see that her horn cannon quirk was being assisted by Kodai and her size-changing quirk. Midoryia was puzzled. He thought Kodai could only affect non-biological objects including people. Pony's horns must have been inorganic somehow. Ida came across some of Bando's glue and ran parallel to it, careful not to get caught. Then he turned around and ran back to his team's cage. He must have been acting as a scout. 1B has already taken the lead with 2 prisoners. Midnight announced. Midoryia saw that somehow Tsuburaba had trapped Mineta with his air quirk. Now Tetsu was running back to base with their prize. Meanwhile, Shoji was knocked out by one of the giant horns and being hauled back to the cage too. Man, this is bad, Kirishima commented. Diamond Bakugo shouted. Bando appeared on the screen running away from something. In the blink of an eye, several impacts struck him in several spots. There was only one person in the round that could do that. Ida kept striking Bando until he was KO'd. Soon enough, 1A had a capture. Meanwhile, Pony and Kodai were continuing to wreak havoc with the giant horns. Sato seemed to be struggling to break through them despite being consuming enough sugar to satisfy a kid for a month. Tokage was still in pieces floating around and Aoyama was lacking accuracy to hit them with his naval laser. It looks like Class 1A has taken the lead now. Mr. Ken grunted. Midoryia looked up and saw Tsuyu opening up the cage with a key. Shoji and Mineta stumbled out. All right, Froppy, Mina shouted. The celebration was short-lived though. The ground beneath their feet gave way, and they all tumbled into a ditch surrounding the entire cage. All 3 were knocked out and quickly captured by Kaibara. He must have used his gyration quirk to dig out a tunnel from underneath when no one was looking. Class 1B is back in the lead. 𝐔𝐬𝐽𝐽 from defense to offense and began blasting high-energy sound waves at all of 𝐒𝐭𝐽𝐽𝐽's visible pieces along with 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏. The latter collapsed from the overwhelming forces before 𝐈𝐵 grabbed and threw him into the cage. Before anyone could understand what was happening, 𝐈𝐵 threw 𝐔𝐬𝐽𝐽 onto his back and rocketed towards the giant horns still being launched. 𝐔𝐬𝐽𝐽 continued to pump out the sound energy directly at Pony and Kodai even as she and 𝐈𝐵 whizzed right by. Then it dawned on Midoryia, 𝐔𝐬𝐽𝐽 had a key but 𝐈𝐵 didn't. "Come on guys, you got this?" Kirishima cheered. Meanwhile, Aoyama seemed to be burnt out from shooting his laser. He was exhausted and struggling to stand up. 𝗕𝗏𝗁𝐽𝐽's pieces quickly came back together to form her original body and quickly took him down. She must have been tired too as she struggled to carry him back to Class 1B's cage. Meanwhile, Sato kept smashing through the giant horns, albeit with less rational thought. Opponent seemed to tiring out from shooting off so many horns. But Kodai clearly was far from done. She started throwing tiny objects she had stored in her outfit and enlarging them as they shot towards Sato. Just like at the provisional license exam. "Hey Deku, we need to work on a plan before it's too late," Uraraka told him. "I know, I have some thoughts." "Well, we're listening," Sito said. "I think they'll try to keep me separated from everyone else so that I can't help in any way. If that happens, we need the following to be on the offense and the rest on defense." Deku commented. They continued to discuss the plan quietly, all the while Deku kept thinking about the biggest challenge he would have to face. No way did he want to fight or even hurt Battle Fist. But he was still content on keeping the relationship a secret from the others. If their paths crossed, combat had to be a possibility. 30 seconds left. They returned to looking at the screens. To their dismay, only 𝐈𝐵 and 𝐔𝐬𝐽𝐽 were free. But they were struggling to get close enough to the cage without getting stuck in a hidden trap. It seemed like Kybara had been digging very quickly and extensively. 10 seconds. 𝐈𝐵 and 𝐔𝐬𝐽𝐽 reached the cage. She quickly jumped off and ran over with the key in hand. 5. She stopped at the door, shaking to find the receptacle. 4. She collapsed to the ground. She had been struck by a giant bolt. Kodai stood nearby with another one in hand. 0. Class 1B wins round 1. Congratulations, Mr. Ken said proudly. As Monoma and Tetsu were celebrating and gloating the victory over 1A, Deku could see the frustration in Bakugo and the others. Still, he felt sympathy for his class even if they didn't win the round. Sure, they could have done better, but they did a pretty good job. "Now we really need win this round if we are to succeed," Siro commented. "Let's hope that this group has a better plan, if not we're screwed." Toru mentioned. They have Bakugo and Shoto. Those two will be a challenge for the other team to overpower. I think that they can as long as Monoma doesn't copy their quirks. Koda said. "Monoma isn't the real problem, Mikasa is?" Uraraka interjected. "Is she the new girl that resembles Hatsum?" Deku asked. "What's her quirk?" "Yeah, that's her. She has what they call Electric Dragon, and it is exactly what it sounds like. Plus it can match Bakugo's explosions in terms of damage. She's that strong. And she can also fly. I think y'all are forgetting about the other strong ones in our class like Kaminari and Kendo," Kirishima chimed in. "Oh yeah, Denki could be a good diversion for all that electricity. But what can Kendo do?" Deku asked. "Just watch. Round 2 is about to begin. All participants take up positions," Midnight announced. The rest of the viewers became glued to the screens as the teams each huddled up one last time before combat. Bakugo, of course, didn't seem interested in joining in. 3, 2, begin. Bakugo immediately blasted off into the sky and was followed by Todoroki on a continuous slide of ice. Meanwhile, Deku was caught off guard by watching Mikasa's transformation into the Electric Dragon and flying off. Shishida went into beast mode while Shiozaki deployed her vines to sense all around her. Momo immediately started making what looked like trapping gear. Suddenly, a gigantic ice wall formed. Todoroki was setting up a defense as he kept moving. On the other end, Yanagi and Monoma seemed to both be using the former's quirk to move larger rocks around and build their own wall. Bang 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 boom. Up in the sky, 𝐒𝐿 was already fighting Mikasa, but she was proving to be very fast for him. He was struggling to get close to her and land a heavy blow. Lightning began to erupt from her mouth and shoot straight for him. Except it went straight for the Class 1A cage area. A close-up revealed a giant lightning rod had been and was being manned by Denki. He looked stupid. Momo was lying on the ground, completely exhausted. She must have made the structure, and it took more effort than originally thought. One of the screens suddenly revealed Todoroki's ice wall being obliterated by none other than Shishida. As the camera zoomed in, the beast was charging straight for Kendo. The latter wasn't looking at the charging former, nor seemed aware of an impending massive blow. "Kendo, what are doing?" "Front." Ida shouted. Zing! A massive vertical whirlpool of lightning and bright gases formed between them with a roar so loud that it could be heard by the spectators. Shishida tried to stop but ran right through it. Or rather into it. He disappeared and the whirlpool faded away quickly. "Wait, what just happened?" Uriarka asked. "Kendo used his quirk. Better check the cage," Mr. Aizawa said. Another screen showed a similar effect taking place inside the cage. Shishida emerged as it faded too. "Class 1A takes the lead. What kind of quirk is that?" Uriarka continued. "Looks like some sort of portal capability. Looks like there is a time delay though when using it." Deku replied as began to mutter about it in his notebook. He calls it slip space jump. Basically, he can go from one position to any other via slip space so long as he is facing the same direction of the destination. Kirishima commented, "Whoa, that's amazing. I wonder if he has other uses for it besides traveling." Deku replied, "Maybe." They continued to watch the battle unfold. Todoroki was beside Momo with some ice as she recovered while Mina and Ojiro made their way to the other team's site. It seemed odd to Deku considering that no one else was captured, but getting more cage residents would always be welcomed. Suddenly Kendo jumped into another slip space portal while looking upwards. Zing! Off-screen, everyone could see a new portal open up in cold sky. From a drone, he came out and fell back to the ground. "What the hell?" Zero shouted. Before anyone else could respond, Bakugo caught him and carried him for a short distance before blasting him off. Kendo ended up on Mikasa's back. A violent struggle between the two ensued as Mikasa tried to get the hitchhiker off. Suddenly Bakugo shot straight in and unloaded a massive explosion onto both of them. They tumbled from the sky and appeared KO'd. That is until another portal opened up and they both fell in. Bakugo took off in the same direction as Ojiro and Ishido. The portal opened up outside the cage next to Momo and Todoroki. Kendo stumbled to his feet while Mikasa lay unconscious. He and Todoroki both locked her up, scoring another point. Denki appeared to be less stupid by that point after taking that massive lightning bolt from Mikasa. He and Kendo entered through another portal and quickly caught up with the rest of the team. However, something appeared off as Denki emerged. He looked injured and weakened than before he entered the portal. He could barely stand. Kendo turned around and face-bombed as if he was surprised that Denki was there. The latter sat against a tree while recovering. Kendo continued onwards after saying something. By that point, Bakugo was dodging a hailstorm of rocks from Yanagi and Monoma as well as scales from Rin's quirk. He was still airborne but just above the treetops. Ojiro and Mina quickly arrived on site and quickly tried to overwhelm the remaining team. Then Komori activated her quirk and unleashed a plague storm of fungus upon the three. The trees and other vegetation became covered in mushrooms. Worse still, it seemed as though all three inhaled some of the spores and were already suffering from the effects. Even Bakugo was struggling to fire off AP shots without coughing heavily. Mina tried to use acid to clear the cloud of spores, but it was no use. Ojiro stood no chance. As they slowly caved, it seemed as though they were about to be captured. Another slip space opened up and Kendo charged out. He kept making jumps whenever Class 1B tried to shoot at him. But he was getting fatigued too. After several more jumps, he managed to reach his fallen teammates and took up a defensive stance. Komori unleashed another cloud of spores at him but was blocked by a massive portal forming. Acting like a sponge, it prevented the fungus from causing any more harm. Monoma tried to copy slip space jump and portal to the cage holding his captured teammates. However, another screen showed him coming out injured and exhausted just like Denki did. Yaoyorozu was still too weak to stand, but Todoroki had vanished. A standoff ensued between Kato and the rest of Class 1B. Rin, Shiozaki, Komori and Yanagi tried to bypass the portal with their quirks but were unable to effect it. Suddenly all 4 of Class 1B ran away as if they were trying to escape a beast charging at them. A massive fireball erupted across the screen, taking out a camera and all the fungus as well as setting Shiozaki's hair on fire. Todoroki had arrived. He burned away the rest of the spores and launched a series of ice attacks on the remaining opponents, trapping them quickly. By that point, Bakugo, Mina and Ojiro were back on their feet, though still coughing. With all the opponents trapped in ice, they quickly moved in and apprehended everyone. With 10 minutes to spare, Class 1A wins round 2. Midnight. Kato, what happened to Denki and Monoma? Deku asked him. They're suffering from a bit of radiation damage. Slip space emits a lot of that and only my body can handle it. Sorry, I should probably explain my quirk to you. No need to. Why don't you rest up? I like the way you think, Kato replied. This was it. The last round of the assessment. His team had a plan in place, but at the back of his head it was prone to change. The classes were tied and he could see the rising tension between them. Monoma was frustrated from his loss in the previous round, while Denki tried to calm Jiraiya and assure her that her team's loss wasn't her fault. Itsuka. She still looked uneasy, but over what? The nightmare. The tied score. The fact that she might have to fight her boyfriend. Or something else. All round 3 participants take up your position at this time. Midnight called out. It took 5 minutes by a small bus to reach their cage's new location. Thanks to Todoroki, part of the forest had been burnt down and thus warranted the move. All right, everyone, remember the plan? Kirishima asked. Begin. Everyone nodded and took off in different directions. Uraraka followed Deku, prepared to activate her quirk. As they made their way through the cold forest, Deku felt a strong twist in his stomach, a gut-wrenching feeling. Are you okay, Deku? Yeah, I'm okay. Let's get airborne now. Got it? She tapped Deku and then herself. They started to float upwards without gravity pulling them down. As they cleared the treetops, they couldn't see the foes. Perhaps they were too far away at the moment. Remember, Quario can travel through shadows, so we need to stay in lit areas once we land. Yeah, but I don't see anyone yet, Uraraka replied. As she spoke, Deku noticed that the ground seemed to be getting moist. The trees were leaning and sinking into the ground. Deku. It's Mudman and Quario. He looked down and saw Hananuki swimming through the ground. He must have been using his soften quirk to affect the whole playing field. And a shadow was moving alongside him. Just keep us up here, Deku replied. We see you too. Kamakiri. No. Quario said. Out of the blue, Jack Mantis jumped up from a tree and shot straight towards them. He quickly deployed his blade quirk while closing in for a strike. Red Riot Unbreakable. Kirishima appeared in front of Deku and Uraraka and took the hit of the blades. He was fully hardened and bearing spikes. DMN. Kamakiri tried to strike again but got gut-punched by the red-hair hero. I'll take of him, go, Kirishima shouted. But what about the mud? Uraraka replied. Just stick to the plan. Go. The two continued to float along to the target area. After several minutes, Deku noticed that the ground was getting closer than expected. Uraraka, we're not there yet? He turned his head around and saw she was completely green around the gills and was struggling, holding in a lot of her stomach's contents. Hang in there. Just a little further, he shouted. But it was too late. Her quirk gave out and the two tumbled down to surface. It was a hard landing as he rolled several meters away from the impact point. Ugby. She started vomiting up a rainbow of lunch and breakfast. He ran over to her and tried to lift her up. Uraraka continued throwing up for a few more seconds as Deku carried her on to the destination. The other team's cage was in sight. So far it appeared no one had been captured yet. Okay, we made it. Now we just need Zero to arrive. Already here, came his voice from atop the cage. Alright, glad you made it, Deku replied. Hey, what's wrong with Uraraka? Her quirk dash. Oh, right now I remember. Anyway, I managed to get 𝐬𝐬𝐽 and Fukudashi ensnared. Great. 𝐬𝐭𝐴MI knows where they are. 𝐎𝐻𝐢𝐵. A massive blow from behind 𝐬𝐻𝑜 sent him flying off the cage. 𝐭𝑟𝑖𝑜 stood in his place. Behind him came Kendo with a knocked-out Kirishima in hand. We're faster than that. I had a feeling that you were headed here, he commented. 𝐬𝐻𝑜 was knocked out on the ground. And the ground was turning into mud. The plan was falling apart. Uraraka. Get 𝐬𝐻𝑜 out of here fast. Deku shouted as 𝐭𝑟𝑖𝑜 merged with the shadows. By that point, she seemed just well enough to comply. But she was stumbling still. One for all. 5%. Deku thought to himself as he charged up his quirk before jumping up and onto a tree. He could see 𝐬𝐻𝑜 rising into the air but not Uraraka. Kendo. Get the cage open while I got her. Hananuki shouted from beyond sight. Uraraka had been captured and Kirishima was likely about to be thrown in. The plan was completely ruined. I gonna carve you up, fool. Kamakiri appeared from behind and threw a massive punch into Deku's stomach. His blades were deployed. Before he could land another blow, Deku unleashed 5% upon the human/praying mantis. A series of quick and powerful kicks sent the attack into another tree, obliterating it, before getting stuck to another one. With power raging, Deku lunged towards the cage at high speed. With luck, he impacted Hananuki just as he was about to put Uraraka in. Deku, behind you! She shouted. Detroit smash. He threw it straight at an emerging 𝐭𝑟𝑖𝑜. The latter was waiting in the darkness of the cage. He impacted the back of the cage and was knocked out. Uraraka immediately grabbed Kirishima and pulled him out of the cage. All three immediately started to float upwards and away from the scene. Wait, where's 𝐬𝐻𝑜? Deku asked. He looked around but didn't see him floating in the sky or anywhere else. Someone must have gotten him. Uraraka. Get Kirishima out of here. I'm going to find 𝐬𝐻𝑜. But you'll be on your own. Don't worry about me. Just try to avoid getting captured and get 𝐬𝐻𝑜's prisoners to our cage. She released him and he quickly landed back onto the soft ground. He immediately began running back towards 1B's cage. Even with one for all, running through mud like this was proving challenging. It was very thick and resistant to flow, almost like fresh asphalt. As he continued, he realized that he had just been tricked. The ground completely gave out from beneath him and he started to sink rapidly into the mud. He tried to jump out at 8% power but it was no good. He had no solid ground to jump from. As his neck quickly became submerged, there was a hint of yellow nearby. It was 𝐬𝐻𝑜. He was still knocked out but lying against a big tree. That gave him an idea. As his eyes slipped beneath the surface, Deku aimed his gauntlets at the tree, hoped for the best and activated Black 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏. His sight was mostly black from the mud but he felt the tendrils shoot out and latch onto something. He tried to pull himself out but it wasn't enough. One for all, full cowling 15%. With mud in his eyes, Deku shot out of the ground and flew straight forward. Izuku. The last thing he heard was the sound of breaking bones. His vision was fuzzy and he felt disoriented. It took him several seconds to realize that he was lying face down. The smell of dry dirt filled his nostrils and the cold air brought him back around. As he stumbled to his feet, Deku saw a path of destruction behind him. Where was 𝐬𝐻𝑜? He started to follow the trail backwards but didn't see any mud. The ground was ripped up and several trees were smashed. What happened? He said quietly. Suddenly, underneath the branches, he saw an arm and hand sticking out. Running over, Deku began to clear the branches off and was thinking about how to get. It wasn't 𝐬𝐻𝑜. He recognized the blue hero costume. It was Kendo. Her eyes were open but not blinking. There was BLD coming from her mouth and both arms were clearly broken. He fell to ground as his tears started falling onto her costume. Several minutes earlier, Class 1A remains in the lead with one capture. Mr. Aizawa said. Demon, I think we're not going to win. Tetsu said. Pony continued to hold on to fleeting hope that maybe they could at least tie in the end. 𝐬𝐻𝑜 was still in the area. If Kendo or Hananuki could locate him, then there was a chance to tie the score. But Midoryia was proving very powerful, just like Bakugo and Todoroki. Oh man, it looks like Midoryia is trapped. He's sinking fast. Mineta shouted. On one screen, everyone could see Deku quickly being overcome with quicksand. It seemed like he was going to be completely submerged. Off to the side, Hananuki and Kendo could be seen. She was coming over to Zero to pick him up while Mudman was a further distance away from all of them. He was clearly controlling what areas would become softened and turn to mud. "Oh, those black things back," Kaminari commented. Sure enough, the black lightning-like streaks started shooting out from where Deku was sinking. They quickly got a grip on Kendo's limbs, preventing her from reaching Zero or moving. "Wait, what's he doing now?" Todoroki asked. Before anyone could guess, Deku rocketed out of the ground, flew right into Kendo. Pony squirmed in horror at that moment. They tumbled like a skipping stone on water while smashing through several trees before coming to a stop, lying face down. Several minutes passed as confusion and alarm spread. No one was focusing on Uraraka, Kirishima, Kamakiri, or the others. There was no movement from anyone. Hananuki had been hit by a flying tree branch and knocked out. Finally, Deku stood up and slowly walked back to where Zero and Kendo were. He lifted a few branches and suddenly collapsed to knees. In front of him was Kendo, probably KO'd. "What's up with him?" Jiri asked. "Is Hecrying?" Momo commented. "Oh my god," Pony thought to herself. Numerous thoughts were racing to her head, but only one thing remained certain. Deku wasn't going anywhere. 3 minutes remaining. Uraraka and the others appeared at their cage with 2 additional prisoners, Shota and Fukudashi. Kirishima stumbled to his feet as the others gathered around. Koda appeared to summon several birds to survey the area. 1 minute. There was very little activity by that point. Class 1A had won. Both classes worked hard and well. There were some issues on both sides, however Class 1A has won with rounds 2 and 3. Our assessments of each student is not complete yet but will be soon. Good job everyone. Midnight said. Pony sighed as her thoughts turned elsewhere. It was getting late in the day and classes were over by that point. Both classes decided to be good sports and hang out together in the evening, despite the 1B losing again. After she had changed out of her hero outfit, Pony decided to go back to her dorm and think about what she had seen. She had a small lump of sorrow in her throat and eyes that were swelling with tears. The teen buried her face in her arms and began talking to herself in English. "Hey Tsunatori, are you all right?" A voice called it. She turned around to Momo walking right behind her. There was a look of concern on her face. "Are you upset about the assessment?" She continued. "No, it's worse." "What? What's wrong?" "Don't tell anyone what I'm about to tell you." Meanwhile, the locker room was empty except for him. The sound of him sobbing echoed throughout. He was out of his hero costume but was struggling to hold himself together. It came true. His nightmares. Her nightmare. Linked together. By an accident similar to what they foresaw. He couldn't get that sight out of his eyes. The expression on her face was one that seemed like death. She didn't respond to his voice or any movement. The limbs appeared broken like snapped wood. And the BLD, oh Cammy, the BLD coming out of her mouth was so abundant that he still felt sick in his gut. His tears contained that traumatic sight. What was he thinking? Couldn't he tell that he had accidentally grabbed Itsuka instead of the tree? Why did he need to use so much of one for all in that moment? Couldn't he have used less? After the round had ended, Midoryia wasn't allowed to accompany his girlfriend to Recovery Girl despite his pleas. So he didn't know the extent of her injuries and couldn't even say sorry to her. Who knew what else he had done? The tears had formed a puddle on the locker room floor. Why? He shouted at himself. "You really think so?" Momo asked. "Who knows what he is going through right now?" Pony replied. "He hurt the girl that he loved. No wonder he stopped fighting and began crying." "Yeah, I wish I knew some way to help him." "Are you sure? He might want to be left alone." "Maybe I should talk to him and tell him that it'll be okay." "Yes, just give him some assurance. That might cheer him up." Momo sighed. "I don't feel like that bringing it up with him is a good idea. At least not at this time. I just hope Kendo is all right. Who knows what kind of injury she sustained?" Pony said with a few tears. "For now, let's just go back to the dorms. Do you want to meet up for dinner?" "I'm in." Later that evening, Man, what a day. Kirishima commented. Think you're up for another round of arm wrestling? Tetsu asked eagerly. Nah, not another one. I'm too tired. Sorry bro, the students of both classes were sitting in the common area of 1A, sheltering from a snowfall. Some were having hot chocolate or food and chatting. Others like Bakugo and Kaminari were playing video games. Ida and Kendo were talking about each other's quirks while the rest were just trying to have fun. Hey guys, what's everyone doing here? 𝐬𝐻 asked as he came through the front door. His head was bandaged up, but otherwise he appeared fine. 𝐬𝐻, how are you feeling? Kaminari asked. Hey, don't pause the game. Bakugo shouted. I'm feeling pretty good. Recovery girl did a good job of patching me up. I should be all better by tomorrow morning. The others, though, Pony's ears perked up at that last statement. She immediately got up from her meal and ran over to him. What's Kendo's health? 𝐬𝐻 sighed and spoke. From what I heard, her entire rib cage is broken, a cracked vertebrae, and has some head trauma. It'll be longer before Recovery Girl releases her. But that was all in passing. So you don't know if there is more damage? She replied. Right? I hope there isn't any further damage. Trust me, neither do I. 𝐬𝐻 walked over to Kirishima and began chatting with him. Pony returned to her meal with Momo while visibly nervous. Oh god, I hope that Midoryia doesn't hear that. Pony said quietly. Hear what? About Kendo's injuries. I think that would hurt him even more. He's probably going to find out soon enough regardless of what happens. Why are you talking about Midoryia? Are you wondering where he is? Jiri asked. Yeah, come to think of it, he hasn't shown up for dinner. Actually, I never saw him leave the locker room. Ida commented. He needs to return soon or he'll miss his curfew. Who cares about the BSTRD? He's probably just training. Bakugo shouted above them all. In this weather? That's not like him, Kirishima mentioned. Jiraiya, do you know where he is? Pony asked. I think I saw him around near the teacher's offices. But honestly, he was in rough shape since the assessment ended. Why do you ask? It's complicated, Momo replied. Are you dating him? Jiraiya asked, pointing at Pony. What? It's a complicated situation. Pony turned slightly red and ended the conversation before finishing her meal. He trudged slowly through the snow, still shaking and still sobbing. There was no way he could go back to the dorms. The guilt and thoughts of suffering were too much to handle. Midoryia was beyond devastated. How could he been so stupid? He grabbed his girlfriend instead of the branches and sent her through several trees for crying out loud. Instead of going to the dorms, he decided to go talk to a friend of his, a manager at a local grocery store. It wasn't far from the campus, but in the snowfall, it would be a bit longer. Ding dong. Went a door chime. Midoryia. What's up? A familiar voice said. He sighed and slowly spoke. There were still tears on his face. I need help, Riku. I can see that. What happened? He proceeded to explain his relationship and how he ended up hurting his girlfriend. DMN dude, that'll definitely hurt. No wonder you're feeling so beaten up. Fortunately, I have a few thoughts. Really? Yeah, make sure she knows you're sorry and maybe give her something nice to help her heal better. Or just something nice. But she's in a coma. How can I say sorry? Just say it when she comes around. Of course, give her some space. But what can I get her for her injuries? I don't even know what exactly they are. In that case, take a classical option. Let me show you some choices. Okay, that'll be 1,700 yen. The cashier stated. Here you go. He replied. That is a very appealing bundle. She'll definitely appreciate those. Riku replied. Thanks again, Riku. Anytime, Midoryia. Let me know how things turn out. He left the store and entered the snowfall with his purchases. 10 minutes passed and he was approaching the dorms. He noticed that the lights in 1B appeared to be out and could see a hive of activity in his. Midoryia. Is that you? He stopped and turned his head to see Uraraka running over to him. Oh hey there, what are you doing out here? He asked. I saw you approaching. We've been wondering where you been. I was at a store buying some stuff. Wait, are those roses? She said while pointing. You wanna know? It's just some food. Midoryia, I can see that's a bouquet of flowers. What did you buy them for? I need to get going. He stuttered. Midoriya, can I talk to you? Pony shouted. Pony, what's going on? Uraraka interrupted. The three were standing in front of 1A's building by then. The snow was falling as was the temperature. I'm sorry, Uraraka, but it's private. She responded quietly. The former was shocked but then left without saying a word. You bought those for Kendo, didn't you? His face became bright red and he started to stutter even more. What are you talking about? Relax, she told me about you two being together earlier today. Wait, she did? Yes, now did you get those for her or not? Yeah, I did. You're a sweet guy, Midoriya. How are you holding up right now? To be honest, I don't feel good at all. He sighed. I feel so horrible for what I did to her. Accidents happen. She replied. You don't know the other half of it, he said with some tears in his eyes. Other half? I'd rather not talk about it, but I really want to get these to her. She's still in recovery and will be all night. Besides, it's almost curfew time. How about you leave them by her bedroom door? Pony suggested. Can you show me where it is? Yeah, let's go, she replied. As they walked next door, he stopped and thought. The other half. Pony, I need to get something else from my room first. I'll be right back, Midoriya said as he darted off. He burst into the common area of 1A where everyone still was. All eyes immediately turned to him. Hey, there you are, Kirishima said. Do you know how close it is to curfew time? Ida while chopping the air. Calm down, Mr. Gundam, Kato said. Sorry guys, I can't talk. Gotta take care of something. Before anyone else could talk, he ran upstairs to his bedroom and straight to his desk. He quickly found the other half to his gift and grabbed it. In less than a minute he had darted back to Pony, who was already covered in snow and trying to keep the roses clear. She shivered but smiled. It's up on the second floor, third door down the hall. You can't miss it, she said as she returned the bouquet. As he entered the Class 1B dorm building, he saw Monoma sitting on the couch. Midoriya, what brings you here after what you did to Kendo? Shut. Midoriya gritted through his teeth. He climbed the stairs and found her door. He placed the roses, a note addressed to her, and a small prayer in front. He made sure it was neat and tidy and not just dropped off. Enjoy, dear, he thought to himself as he left. When she woke up in the woods, the air felt warm, almost like early autumn. The trees were covered in colorful leaves and she could hear birds chirping. Grass graced her backside gently and the fresh smells hugged her nose. She was facing the sky, clear and blue, lacking any large clouds. Nearby was the sound of a flowing stream. Everything felt calm to her. Wait, calm. Kendo had just seen her boyfriend shooting straight towards her in the assessment. Come to think of it, where was Izuku? Where was everyone? What time was it? How come everything was the way it was? As she stood up, she felt no pain or soreness. Her costume was still on, but it felt different, almost like it was lighter and softer. Itsuka, it has been a long time since we last saw each other. A familiar voice called out. She turned around and saw someone she wasn't expecting. Gram. Kendo asked the elder. Oh my, you have gotten so much bigger since I passed. It's so good to see you again. Kendo immediately hugged her grandmother and felt tears in her eyes. Come with me, there is something I wanted to talk to you about. Okay. What is this place, by the way? She asked as they started to walk along a path. There was an opening in the trees. It probably led to a clearing. This is a place of rest, communion, and peace. Is this heaven? I wouldn't call it that, but in some ways it is similar. Here in this land I reside among countless other spirits of those who have passed like me. Am I dead? Kendo asked slowly and dreadfully. No, don't be silly. You still have much to do and give for others. But I thought what has happened to you has not killed you. You are hurting, sweetie, and I wanted to talk to you about it. Hurting? But I don't feel any pain or see any injuries on me. No, I don't mean physical wounds. I mean as in him. Kendo gasped slightly at hearing that. Her grandmother was talking about Izuku, wasn't she? How did you know about my boyfriend? You came here because you have a problem with him. As they cleared the forest, they ended up in a vast rural pasture. They were growing everywhere and a gentle breeze blew on them back and forth. There was a sun in the sky, but it didn't hurt to look at it at all. There was a small hut perched on top of a small hill that overlooked everything. A path led from the front door to where they were. It looked somewhat like something from a fantasy story. "This is my home. Come in and make yourself comfortable," the elders said. "It's appealing. No wonder it feels so nice here." Indeed. The front door automatically opened and revealed a small living room and 2 doors for separate rooms. A fireplace stood in the center and was lit. The overall style resembled traditional Japanese architecture. Kendo sat down by the fire on the floor, as did her grandmother. "Now then, you have a dilemma with Izuku." "You mean how he hurt me?" "No, of course not. I mean as in the secret." "I'm not sure if I follow." "You love him, right?" "Of course. And he loves you too." "Yes." "Then why do you want to hide that love? You don't want other people to find out because you're scared." Kendo sighed and nodded. "I don't want my classmates to think that I betrayed them or to separate me from him." "Now dear, why do you think that they would do that?" "Because our classes hate each other so much. We're rivals pretty much." "Oh, you silly girl. You think your love for Izuku is something wrong in the eyes of everyone else. But I tell you this, your passion is a bridge connecting both sides together in understanding." "What?" "When I was your age, I too had a boyfriend. My parents both argued a lot with anger, and I was afraid that they wouldn't approve of my relationship. But when I did tell them, they stopped arguing and started to heal. They saw my love as a sign to repair their damaged marriage, and they were in harmony with each other afterwards. They supported me and my boyfriend. Eventually, I married him." "You mean Granddad? The one and only? Do you see what I am saying? That I shouldn't be hiding my love for Izuku? Your relationship with him can bring your classes together and end the bitter hatred being harbored. They will not look down on you. Instead, they will look up to you too for the same peace and connection that you have with him." Her grandmother said joyfully. "But what if it doesn't? What if they reject it in him? Do not be afraid, sweetie. If you really love him, they will not stop your passion." Kendo sat there in silence while thinking about her grandmother's words. What would he say if she told them? Would he accept the truth being out, or would it be too much to handle? How would the class see her, the big sister of Class 1B, as someone who was scared to be transparent with them? It's challenging to climb a hill, but once you do, coming down is much easier. Gram, I don't know about it. Even if there is rejection, would you still love him?" "Well, yes, but they can't tell you how to feel about someone else. That's something only you can decide." She went silent again as she thought about what happened before she woke up in the woods. "Do you know how injured I am?" Kendo asked. "You'll find out soon enough. I mean, if I am seriously hurt, then it would be hard to convince everyone to accept my love for Izuku. Then you must love harder." "What do you mean?" "It's time for you to go back home. Take care, Itsuka." "Wait, what do you dash?" Everything became blurry and dark. The walls became taller, the fireplace disappeared, and she felt like she was falling. When she woke up in the recovery ward, it was dark and no one was around. "Thank you, Gram."